really thank God for the presentations of missionary Sarah Teresa and Shepherd Eberhard. They were very graceful and helpful. As I thought about the title of this forum, The Spiritual Education of Second Gen's Children in the House Church Ministry, it made me smile. It implies that we're going to provide wisdom and guidance for raising the next generation leaders in the house church ministry. And of course, this is our intention. But as I thought about this issue, it seems that one focus point should be on raising parents. In my own experience, it is not so much that I educated my children as that I have been educated by God through my children. And that is the primary perspective that I have to share in this rather personal testimony. God has granted my wife and I 6 children, 4 sons and 2 daughters. Each one is his amazing gift and blessing. If I spoke about each one of them, it would take a long time, so I cannot do that. But as time allows, I will share just a couple lessons I have gained from raising my oldest son, David. There are 2 lessons. One is to learn the heart of God the Father, and the other is persistent prayer. First, learning the heart of God the Father. During my oldest son's formative years, I was a pretty strict father. I made sure that he studied well in school. Report card day was like Judgment Day in our house. And I helped him participate in CBF and HBF and orchestra. And outwardly, he did everything he should do. But I did not understand his heart or his character very well. For example, I kept expecting him to be like a baseball player, like his dad. But he's an artist, not like his dad. And feeling misunderstood, he began to rebel inwardly. Toward the end of high school, he asserted his independence in rather dramatic ways. And by the time he was a sophomore in college, he decided to change schools and moved far away from home to be totally independent. This came as a shock to me, and I had a hard time accepting this reality. I felt like a failure as a father and totally unqualified to live as a servant of God. But God had mercy on us. One Saturday night, as I was struggling to prepare a Sunday message, Romans 8:32 touched my heart deeply. It says, "He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also along with him graciously give us all things?" As a grieving father, I began to relate my own emotion to God the Father, who gave his only Son to us. And for the first time, I began to recognize the great pain God must have felt to give up his Son. And God's great love for sinners like me began to flood into my heart. I found true comfort in God's love for me. I found hope in God's love for my son as well. And I began to see all young people as those who are dearly loved by God. It was a life-changing moment for me in growing as a shepherd. Still, a constant ache remained in my heart for my son. About 2 years later, as I listened to a message on Luke chapter 15 about the father of the prodigal son, another breakthrough came. I found the father's wisdom of letting his son go in the hope he would someday return with a genuine understanding of his father's love. This is the heart of God. I found the meaning of my struggle to raise my oldest son. Not only was it for his salvation, but also for me to learn the heart of God. I could entrust my son fully to God, and my aching heart was assuaged, and patient compassion began to form within me. I began to look to the distant lands, waiting for my son's return. Second, persistent prayer. I found that the time of waiting is also the time of prayer. The Lord gave me Luke 18:1. Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to teach them that they should always pray and not give up. My motto became, always pray and never give up. For several years, I lived with this motto without seeing any visible sign of my son's return. However, God used my personal struggle to draw me closer to him. Early every morning, I arose to read the Bible, do my daily devotional, and pray with ever increasing love and zeal. In the beginning, I spent 1 hour, then 1.5 hours, later 2 hours. It has become the sweetest time for me, the time to meet God personally and have fellowship with God. I could bring many prayer topics to the Lord and receive strength and wisdom and love to serve him daily. And in the course of time, he answered my prayer. My son returned home of his own free will and with a sincere apology. At the same time, I also apologized to him and asked his forgiveness for my sins and shortcomings as a father. Of course, there is a lot more to the story, but let me conclude by saying that as the pandemic began last year, he asked me to study the Bible with him, beginning with Genesis. And he said he wants to study almost all of the Bible together with me as time goes by. For the last 1 year, we have studied Genesis every week without fail. And God has been working in his heart. And during this past Christmas season, he confessed, Jesus Christ is Lord. And I was so happy and thankful. In summary, I can say that as I learned the heart of God and how to pray persistently, my son came to Christ. This is my own family story. It's not typical, but it's very personal. But I believe a general takeaway may be that the spiritual growth of parents is vital to raising our children in the knowledge of God. What I have shared thus far is from a father's perspective. As the senior pastor of the Chicago UBF Church, I also have a pastoral responsibility for the spiritual education of all the children who come through Chicago UBF. And it is one that I have taken seriously. During the last 20 years, under the leadership of missionary Isaac Choi and Shepherd Tim McKeithron, our Children's Bible Fellowship has developed remarkably. CBF leaders have attended various conferences in the USA devoted to the spiritual education of children. They learned a lot from other churches and ministries, and they developed a Bible study curriculum that ensures that each child will go through the entire Bible before they finish CBF. They have worked hard to recruit teachers who are dedicated to serve children sacrificially. They hold regular workshops to help teachers improve in competence. Now there is a thriving CBF program in Chicago UBF every Saturday. Children from other chapters and from our own neighborhood participate. And we believe this is extremely important. As we listen to Christians share their life testimonies, so many have confessed they met God when they were children through Children's Bible Fellowship or through a Sunday school or some program as a child. In Chicago UBF, we have invested a lot of time, money, and energy in our Children's Bible Fellowship program. The same can be said of our high school Bible Fellowship, led by David Choi, Sam Toe, and now Francis Choi. Still, it is the role of parents in their children's lives that is most critical. All of our youth ministers, youth leaders agree. Parents' influence is by far the most important. So we have begun hosting parenting classes in our chapter. One is ongoing now called Visionary Parenting. This can be helpful. But the most important thing our youth leaders have told us to do is to have family worship services in each one's home. There can be no substitute, I believe, for having family devotional and worship time. Missionary Isaac Choi has excellent material for this, and he'll be glad to share it with anyone who asks. Today, we have only touched the surface of a very important subject to us all. If there is any aspect of this subject that anyone would like to dig deeper into, please post a comment in the chat and we can consider it for future forums. May God have mercy on us all and guide us to raise his children under our care in the knowledge of God, so they may be a light in this dark world and the salt of the earth. Amen.